Hey everybody, Michael Glenn here. I'm on my way to Chicago. I'm going to be teaching a seminar with some of the topics that I've been learning in Japan. One of them is this idea of muto buto nari. This is a concept that Hatsumi Sensei wrote on a scroll for me, and it seems definitely pertinent to the training this year. But in this video I want to talk about some ideas about densho and what they mean in our art and some of the misconceptions people have about them.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Chicago, where we have arrived early at 8:24. On behalf of your entire Chicago and Los Angeles-based crew, we'd like to thank you for flying with us this evening. If this is home, welcome home, and if you need to use your cell phones, you may do so at this time.
We had some really great training in Chicago. I was pretty freezing there because I'm not used to that weather, but everybody that was there had good energy, and we explored the Gokui of Mutodori. In this video I wanted to talk about densho. People get really attached to densho. Densho are the scrolls that have all of the techniques that have been passed down through the generations, and so these scrolls are in the form of text, Japanese text, and pictures. But it's important to understand in the Bujinkan that densho is only a small part of our training. It does not include the whole art. The whole art is densho plus kuden. Kuden is the oral teaching that comes directly from an instructor or the soke of the school. And so the real art is found in the kuden plus the densho. So those two things are inseparable. You can't have one without the other.
Okay, you've been asking for this snow, and now you got it.
What is this stuff?
You brought this.
I don't know what this stuff is. Soap?
This is.
It looks like anti-dirt.
This is what we get here all the time.
Yeah.
Some people are what Soke calls technique collectors. He kind of uses this term in a derogatory way to refer to people who are collecting the techniques or the texts of techniques without really understanding the art behind the techniques. This is a big problem in the Bujinkan. There's people who collect books, videos, densho, different downloads from the internet. All of these things, they can be useful and they can be references, but a lot of them are full of mistakes, full of errors, and so these kind of denshō-sha, or people who are attached to densho, are really missing the point. One of the problems with people who collect the texts, like they collect books or they collect texts that they download off the internet, one of the problems with that is a lot of these texts are full of mistakes. Even Hatsumi Sensei's books, the English translations have mistakes in them. For example, there's a kata called keo, and when you look at the text in the back, it says to use a different hand in Japanese than it says in English. So if you were to try to replicate this kata from the English translation, you might just misunderstand what's being taught there. So this goes for the Japanese text too. The source for these Japanese texts, who knows where that comes from, and if it was transcribed correctly, it could be full of mistakes or problems. So this is something you have to think about. So there's also various books that people put out that have the so-called techniques or densho in them. There's a series of books that are green, and some of you may have seen these. I've personally reviewed those, and they're full of mistakes. So unfortunately, a lot of people around the world have purchased these and they try to use them to teach their classes from those books, but those books themselves are full of errors. Sorry to say that, sorry to burst your bubble, but this is what I've discovered in my own research. So there's lots of videos on YouTube, people doing kata, doing techniques. Obviously, those are a mixed resource. Some of the videos are good, some are not so good. But even Hatsumi Sensei's videos have mistakes in them. Hatsumi Sensei himself has told us that some of these videos, he was unhappy with the way they turned out, or they have mistakes, or they are incorrect with certain kata. You'll even notice, like, some of the videos will have technique names or English translations on the bottom, subtitles, and those are full of errors. So if you're trying to collect or assemble your teaching from videos, books, or sources on the internet, you're going to have your classes will be full of mistakes, full of errors. So it's really important to get with a good teacher. That's why the kuden is a big part of the densho, right? So you need to get with a qualified instructor, whether it be in Japan or someone who goes to Japan a lot, and because the real techniques are kuden plus densho. You can't have one without the other. Another problem is, even when you go to classes, the teachers make mistakes. I myself have done it. I've even witnessed it in Japan. I've been training in Japan with a teacher, and I've watched the teacher make a mistake and present the technique incorrectly in class. This has happened to me more than once. One time I actually went up to the teacher while I was taking notes in his class, and I mentioned to him that the technique seemed like it should be done a different way, and he said, oh yeah, he realized he had done it incorrectly, so then he had to do it again, and he retaught the class because he noticed his mistake. But other times I've been in classes and the teachers make a mistake, and I don't say anything because I don't want to interrupt the class, and sometimes I'm unsure if they've really made a mistake or not, so I don't even say anything, and the teacher just keeps teaching. So unfortunately for people who don't know that there was a mistake, they may go home and write in their notes that the teacher showed this particular kata this way, and when they go home and teach it to their students, they're going to be teaching an error or a mistake. So it's very important to check your information with multiple sources to make sure you're doing the correct technique. Hatsumi Sensei says that the art that has been written down has been altered across history. That means the densho that we have was maybe rewritten or altered by different persons to serve their purposes. They may have taken their original documents and there was something in it they didn't like, so they transcribed it differently. So when you get too attached to densho, you have to understand what it is you're actually attached to. You're attached to something that someone in the past decided was best, and they may have been mistaken, they may have had a bias, they may have been incorrect, it may have been something that is really not useful, and here you are in the modern day trying to treat it like a Bible and be really stuck on it. So it's important that we have the freedom and keep the art a living art. So Soki says this kind of densho is like an imperfect representation of what actually happened. That's why we have the oral history, or the kuden. So the densho itself is imperfect, and we need the kuden to keep the art alive, to make it a living art and keep it growing. Soke says the kuden and the densho are like yin and yo, and it's important to have a balance between the two. And when you have that balance between kuden and densho and the living art, you might have an epiphany and see the true essence of Budo.